The story revolves around a woman named Kisa Gotami, who lived during the time of Buddha's life when he had already achieved nirvana and was traveling to impart his teachings upon others. Kisa's only child, a very young son, had died. Unwilling to accept his death, she carried him from neighbor to neighbor and begged for someone to give her medicine to bring him back to life. One of her neighbors told her to go to Buddha, located nearby, and ask him if he had a way to bring her son back to life. Bringing the body of her son with her, Kisa found Buddha and pleaded with him to help bring her son back to life. He instructed her to go back to her village and gather mustard seeds from the households of those who have never been touched by death. From those mustard seeds, he promised he would create a medicine to bring her son back to life. Relieved, she went back to her village and began asking her neighbors for mustard seeds. All of her neighbors were willing to give her mustard seeds, but they all told her that their households had been touched by death. They told her the living are few, but the dead are many. As the day became evening and then night, she was still without any of the mustard seeds that she had been instructed to collect. She realized then the universality of death. According to the Buddhist verse her story comes from, she said, "It's not just a truth for one village or town, nor is it a truth for a single family, but for every world settled by gods and men. This indeed is what is true impermanence." With this new understanding, her grief was calmed. She buried her son in the forest and then returned to Buddha. She confessed to Buddha that she could not obtain any of the mustard seeds he had instructed her to collect because she could not find even one house untouched by death.
Now, now we'll just open it up. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answers. It's more of what did you get out of the story? What questions arose? What insights? What did you get out of the story?
Well, I kind of got hope because, right, death is something that we all have to experience, all living beings, and just like the connectedness and like that I'm not alone and like that person's not alone kind of already relieves a little bit of suffering. So, yeah.
I keep thinking about what she was desiring. She wanted that pain to just be completely lifted from her like magic and just to return to normal. And so I think, what she did in persevering through this, she even not only learned about, impermanence, but just realized that you have to sometimes, bad things are going to happen. You're going to feel pain and you're going to suffer. You're going to feel suffering. And the way to ease that suffering is to face it and then to work through it. And that's the big thing. That's the thing when we're hurting, we just want somebody to take it away like magic. But we realize if we open to it and explore it and go with what it really means, I think it helps us a lot.
Do either of you want to contribute anything tonight? And you don't have to. Just say it, no pressure.
And in a way, him giving her hope through the mustard seed story, someone could say, well, that's cruel, isn't it, to raise her hopes like that? But he realized that by doing that, that was just really just a very deep way of teaching. It was a way of teaching her, and he knew that only that it would not bring any more pain and suffering to her. The task he gave her, it was not going to confuse her more. It was only going to hopefully lead her to her own recognition that she's carrying this suffering around with her. Her son's already dead. She'll never see him again in this life. But you know, we never want that connection to break. We want it to be permanent, and it just isn't.
Yeah, I also thought about how this can apply to other aspects of impermanence, like attachment to like youth, even though we're all going to get old and those types of things. And yeah, so.
And look what our culture does to us, right? You got to be faster, younger, smarter, always. Because you're in your present form, you're defective. You're not okay.
So for me, the notion that nothing lasts forever is kind of a no duh. So it's not anything super insightful. We all know that nothing lasts forever. We've heard that most of our lives. So that's impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. But a deeper understanding of Buddhist impermanence brings a sense of relief. So the lady, the mother in this story, when she had that insight, that moment of, oh, 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 that understanding of impermanence, she didn't feel tricked. She didn't feel anger. She didn't feel more sorrow. She didn't feel that she had to go on and find some other way of bringing her son to life. There was a peaceful acceptance and understanding. And so those are things to look for as you're learning more and more about Buddhist impermanence. Impermanence, a deeper understanding of impermanence brings about those things, that insight, that understanding, that peace, that, oh, this is okay. And what Chris said was really good, because we need to bring this idea of impermanence beyond just death. The constant flux and change of our universe, of the world around us, of our bodies. Everything is constantly in flux, and constantly changing, constantly moving. And so when we get in tune with that fact that things are constantly in a flow, and that's the state of this universe, we resist it less. And we go with the flow. Not in the sense of giving up, not in the sense of being helpless or passive. It's an understanding of, oh, this is where I need to be. Or, oh, it's time to move on. And so if we notice the times that we don't want to move on, we're not ready to move on, those are the times that create dissatisfaction, suffering, a longing, a sense of loss. It's when, like the mother in the story, when we feel somehow I don't deserve to have lost my son, or I don't deserve this pain or suffering, or, I've been a good person, I shouldn't be going through this. When we hold that belief, that creates suffering within us. But when we humble ourselves and recognize, yeah, at any time this could have happened to me and it just did, and that's how the universe is, then you're ready to move on to the next step, the next growth, the next transition. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a defeat. You are giving up in the sense that you're letting go, you're not attached, but it's not a, it should lead to a sense of growth, at least the deeper understanding of impermanence leads to a sense of growth, of evolution, of change that is healthy.
I think also when we are in pain, like grief and loss, we tend to be self-absorbed because sometimes the pain is so intense and comes the depression with being very sometimes self-absorbed. And when the woman, the lady or us realize that actually loss is a shared experience and give us the other people experience the same pain and the sense of connection we have with other people's loss as well, I think that helps us even more to let it go. That sense of shared experience, shared pain, the community, the connection we have. I think that's is the moment when we become from self-absorbed and try to accept and maybe not let it go, but just accept, and pain comes more tolerable, I guess. What Buddhism, I'm pretty new with this Buddhism knowledge and learning, what it says about grief, about letting go. If I'm in the topic.
Yeah. And so the impermanence, one, it teaches that grief is a process and that we learn how to deal with grief more and more, or at least we're supposed to. And so it accepts that that's not something that you just snap your finger and you're done with it. But it also acknowledges that it doesn't have to be as long as most people make it. That with a deeper understanding of impermanence, a deeper understanding of our attachments and aversions, that you can go through grief, the process of grief, a lot quicker and a lot easier. I'm reminded of the death of my father, and remember getting the phone call. I remember rushing to the hospital. And I remember already it was about an hour drive, so I had a lot of time to think. And I remember in that hour drive, sort of like, all right, this is a new phase of my life. This is not to be unexpected. I'm not the first to lose their father. And so there's that what Bogdana said, that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to understand I'm not alone, but I also understood I need to give myself space to grieve. This is my father I've lost. And so I'm not, even though I'm an advanced, even though I may believe I'm some advanced Buddhist student, I'm still human.
Right.
And I must accept my humanity. Otherwise, I'm just setting myself up for more pain. I got to the hospital. They were doing, the CPR with a machine. The doctor said, this is the last thing we're going to try. And if he doesn't respond, there's nothing else we can do. I knew automatically what that meant, that he was gone. I remember, I wasn't surprised when he did not react to anything else that was attempted. I remember grabbing his hand, and there's we talk about denial. I grabbed his hand and I was kind of hoping that he would just
Okay.
squeeze my hand one more time.
Yeah.
And that's the denial. That's a human experience. And I recognize it. Oh, there's my denial. And I accepted that I'm allowed that denial.
Mhm.
And I turned, the next few minutes were focused on my mom and helping her out. She was there with me, next to me. She had been there quite a lot longer than I had. And after a few minutes, after several minutes of of my mom just being there, we were there in silence. And I asked my mom if I could have some time on my own with my dad. And in that brief time, I just sat with my emotions. So I allowed myself to feel sadness. But then I discovered, really surprisingly, there was also peace. There was a sense of love because I felt very much loved by my father. Uh, I had a rush of pleasant memories. I also had anger. And so that also surprised me because I knew that my father could have taken better care of himself and he didn't. And then that was it. I mean, well, not totally, like it was not like it was over, but I was able to move on. And like my mom was surprised that that's all, I only needed 2 minutes with my dad. Um, and she was very shocked at how I was able to manage the arrangements and, making the phone calls and telling family what had happened. Um, but I knew that that was because of my understanding of impermanence, that I was fortunate enough that I had had good teachers to lead me in a deeper understanding of impermanence. Um, but it doesn't make you superhuman or non-human. So I still went through all the stages of grief and I still had to go through that process. So having this deep understanding doesn't somehow make you above the human experience. What I found is that the deeper understanding you have of impermanence, the more you allow yourself to be human without judgment, without thinking that you're stupid for reacting that way. And it allows you to just be. And that I have found that being really helped avoid a lot of regrets. I don't have regrets because I felt like I was able to just be.
Yeah.
So impermanence has some really, it has the potential to really impact how we experience great suffering in our life. I highly encourage you to read more about impermanence. I encourage you to just, think about impermanence more. There's a meditation that I did, 25 years ago or so, 27 years ago, where in meditation, I was asked to contemplate my deathbed. So what will it be like when I die? Who will be around there? What am I dying of? What am I feeling? And what's it feel like to slip away and transition into the next phase? And that can be a very impactful meditation. And so that if you feel ready to do something like that, try it out. It can be very insightful. Journal about it. Seek out a teacher to help you understand what you're going through. Those are ways to deepen your understanding of impermanence. There's a lot to learn, but I have found that impermanence is definitely in the top 3 lessons or understandings that have most impacted my life. And so I'm glad that Leon picked this parable because it is very much about impermanence. And if you allow it, if you open yourself to deeper understanding of it, it will make those changes in life easier. Think of how much we as humans resist change,
Mhm.
and how much energy we put into resisting change, and how much energy we put into lamenting that things have changed, and how much energy we put into thinking about the good old days. What happens if you were to reclaim that energy and use it elsewhere?
Yeah, definitely.
There's a, a little couple of paragraphs from another version of this that I downloaded, but when you were talking about just the grieving process, and I thought this was pretty appropriate. It says, not from weeping nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be all the greater, and he will ruin his health. He will make himself sick and pale, but dead bodies cannot be restored by his lamentation. Now that you have heard the Tathagata Kisa, reject grief. Do not allow it to enter your mind. Seeing one dead, know for sure I'll never see him again in this existence. And just as the fire of a burning house is quenched, so does the contemplative wise person scatter grief's power, expertly, swiftly, even as the wind scatters cottonseed. And that last sentence is so powerful to me, because it doesn't say, I'm going to make it go away. It says, I'm going to transform it. I'm going to scatter it, that energy, all that energy that's got me bound up, that's not doing me any good. I'm going to find a way to letting that flow away and not be part of me. So I thought that was pretty. I had an experience at a funeral. I went to a funeral that the teacher, a ceremony that he led, and the wife just was unconsolable. She was just completely and just wrenching with just, it was just horrible to even watch. And he, not unkindly, but he really encouraged her to try to control herself. And I'm thinking, gosh, isn't that kind of, doesn't she deserve to express that? And I think what the Buddha is telling us here is, you're going to suffer, you're going to miss that person. But after a certain point, if you continue, you're generating that within yourself. It's not real. It's not even really a part of what is for you. It's in your own mind. You're continuing to hang on to that person and not want to let it go. And it's hard. I think that just points to the fact that, life is always going to be difficult, even for someone, that's, say, close to nirvana or whatever. They're a human. And as long as they're human beings, they're going to have human difficulties, right? So,
Loss and pain. Yeah.
But I think it is almost time. We got maybe 4
almost
minutes
time.
left. Anyone on have any last comments? I think Leon did a really good job there of wrapping it up
Oh,
and putting it, summarizing it in a nice little nutshell.
Very nice text. Yes, powerful.
Yeah, thank you, Leon.
I think the stories are fun. They help us kind of get, off into some thinking, and gets everybody, thinking about how they might apply these principles to other things. So I think it's helpful.
Good. So keep thinking about these things today. Keep thinking about the words shared here today in our group. We go through many deaths, whether it be there's a part of us that dies, or there's just a change in our life, and we have to lament and grieve the sort of the ending, but also accept and move on. So it's not just the end of life that we are talking about when we talk about impermanence. It's just the constant flux of life, the constant change of this universe. And so when you take the lessons of impermanence to those moments of of grief, those moments of change. It makes it, it opens you up to greater insight and understanding. So I encourage you to continue to think about it. Maybe, you know, many of us are going to have a little more time on our hands with roads closed and maybe losing power or things like that. And so maybe setting aside 5, 10, 30 minutes to just sort of maybe do a Google search for impermanence, Buddhist impermanence, and do some more reading and meditation on it. I find it to be one of the most productive topics. It's a topic that's so deep. There's so much you can learn that even if you just spend 5 minutes, you'll learn something new. So I encourage you to please do that. Next week, we will not be meeting. So we have the last Tuesday we have off, but we will be meeting again. It'll be March 2nd is our next meeting.
Get out of here.
I know.
March already? Holy moly.
We're already near the end of February. So
That's
March
incredible.
2nd, in 2 weeks, we will meet. We will continue our discussion on the Eightfold Path. And I believe the next section is going to be on that's part of the Eightfold Path that's dedicated to mental development. So we'll talk about, let's see, it's right
Effort, mindfulness, and concentration.
Right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Thank you, Leon. So we'll be talking about those three and how they lead to the reduction and or eventually elimination of suffering.
Really good to see all of you. Stay safe, stay warm.
Same here. Nice seeing you, and thank you so much for keeping these meetings.
Yes, it helps me too.
I think also we had Quantri, the newest monk at the temple, is starting his Buddhism Meditation 101. So the information's on our meetup group and on our Facebook page. So if you're interested in learning more about meditation per se, that's a really good group. He's very thorough in his, and structured in his teachings. And so it's a really good way of learning more about meditation. So I encourage you to make time for that as well. And then Sunday service is also broadcasted live on Facebook at 12:30. So you can join us then. Buddhism 101 will be 2 weeks, and I will be sending out emails to remind everyone.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
For being here.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, take care, everyone.